All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to go through the power rankings that were released this week on NFL.com. I'll give you my thoughts on them and, what I possibly disagree with, what I agree with. So let's dive right into it. So, number 32, they have the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, they addressed the offensive line. They traded for Deontay Johnson. So they have made some moves, but they also have made, I think trading Brian Burns was a little, I was a little curious with that. Going to the Giants, so I was happy about it. But again, you look at what they could have gotten for him originally when the Rams offered the Panthers 2 first-round picks, and the Giants come in and what'd they offer them? It was like a third and a fifth-round pick. The Giants ended up. That was a steal for the Giants. The Panthers kind of got fleeced in that trade. But this is going to be a big year for Bryce Young. And you got a new head coach in Dave Canales, who was obviously with Tampa. We'll see what happens. But yeah, they're at 32. So. And again, we still got the draft, so obviously I'll go through these again once, the draft happens. So then you got the Commanders at 31. They're going to be looking to draft a quarterback in this draft, whether it's going to be, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, because the Bears, everybody pretty much is on the same page that they're going to go ahead and draft Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick. But they've signed. They signed Zach Ertz. They signed Bobby Wagner. They've made some other moves as well. I think they're still kind of in the bottom part of the power rankings here. Again, we'll see what they do in the draft. But yeah, they're at 31. So the Patriots are at 30. They brought back Jacoby Brissett. No more Bill Belichick. Gerard Mayo is taking over as the head coach. So again, they're going to be taking a quarterback. They traded Mac Jones. They brought back Kendrick Bourne. Obviously you still got Ramondre Stevenson running the football. So we'll see what the Patriots end up doing. They brought back Hunter Henry as well. They recently signed KJ Osborne. I know I brought that up as well. They're still towards the bottom. They got a lot of work to do. I feel like the Titans are a little low. I feel like they could have been put a little bit higher. At 29, they went down 3 spots. Listen, you lose Derrick Henry, which is big. It's not going to be an easy replacement. He was getting older, of course, but now he's with the Ravens, which I think that's a great spot for him. You bring in Tony Pollard, and let's see if Tony Pollard can bounce back. You bring in Calvin Ridley to go along with DeAndre Hopkins, your tight end Okonkwo and Treylon Burks. This is going to be a big year for Will Levis. I feel like I put the Titans a little bit higher. I don't know if I'd put them at 29. But again, the division's going to be very competitive. I said this. I still look at them as the last place team, but who knows? The Broncos are at 28. I don't know. Right now they don't have a quarterback. Right now, Jarrett Stidham is their quarterback. They're probably going to end up drafting one. We'll have to wait and see, but I'd probably put the Broncos lower at the moment just because, again, they don't have a quarterback. They traded away Jerry Jeudy, so I probably put. They're at 28, so I don't know how much lower I'd put them, but I'd probably rank the Titans ahead of them. That's just me though. Giants at 27. Again, this is a big draft for them. They're probably going to draft a quarterback with their first pick. Unless they're going to take a receiver, which I'd be fine with because that receiving core really needs some work. They've addressed the offensive line in the offseason, but it still needs some work, of course. Yeah, I mean, the offense isn't looking great, but the defense, I think, can be a solid unit in 2024. I mean, especially with the Brian Burns trade, which, I mean, I didn't expect it. And you add him to a defensive line with Dexter Lawrence, with Kayvon Thibodeau. You got to be excited about that at least if you're a Giant fan. The offense, yeah, it's going to be a little frustrating. But we'll see what they do in the draft. The Cardinals are at 26. I mean, we'll see what they end up doing. They signed Jonah Williams to the offensive line. I mean, I guess they're going to be looking to take a receiver. So I think Marvin Harrison Jr. might be playing with Kyler Murray next year. So we'll see. Kyler Murray, obviously, the Cardinals, they've made it clear that he is their quarterback going forward, and he played decent when he came back late in the season. So, and the Cardinals, they definitely showed some fight with Rich Gannon as their or Jonathan Gannon, sorry, as their head coach last season. So we'll see what they do now in year 2 with him. The Saints, they went down 10 spots on these power rankings. They're at 25. They signed Chase Young, who actually has a neck injury, and they were aware of it, and I think they said he's going to miss all of training camp. So, and they cut Michael Thomas. Yeah, so, I mean, listen, Derek Carr finished the year strong. And, I will see how if that carries over in the next season. But yeah, I'm curious to see what ends up happening there. But yeah, I feel like 25 is too low for the Saints. I think they got to be a little bit higher. The Seahawks went down 5 spots. They're at 24. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I feel like that's another team that I think I would rank a little bit higher. Listen. I like the Sam Howell trade a lot. I think that he can end up being the starter at some point. I think he's really going to compete with Geno Smith for that starting job. And again, the Seahawks have a lot of weapons. And you bring in Mike McDonald, who's a defensive guy. So that's. You got a lot of weapons on offense. A defensive guy. I mean, listen, I think the offense is still going to be good because you have, a lot of playmakers. It's going to come down to the quarterback play. And maybe Sam Howell ends up being that guy. Maybe I'm a little too high on Sam Howell, but I don't know. I liked the trade. I think he definitely has a chance to eventually start for them. You got the Vikings at 23. They went down a spot. I like what they did on defense a lot this offseason. The defense took a step forward, with Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator. It's just right now they don't have a quarterback. I mean, you have Sam Darnold, but I don't know if he's not the long-term answer. And who knows what's going to happen with Justin Jefferson if he's going to want out of there. But again, this is one of the best supporting casts that Sam Darnold has ever had. And they signed Aaron Jones, too, to help out with the running game because that was an issue last season. So we'll see what happens. But, I like what the Vikings did outside of losing Kirk Cousins. But they did trade up, so they're going to be looking to draft a quarterback. Then you got the Raiders at 22. Christian Wilkins was a big signing. They did lose Josh Jacobs. They signed Gardner Minshew to compete with Aiden O'Connell. We'll see what they do in the draft. They'll probably end up. I think they're going to end up drafting a quarterback. But they also did recently sign Alexander Mattison in the backfield to go along with Zamir White. But yeah, you still got Devontae Adams. You got Jacoby Myers. Trey Tucker made some plays for them in his rookie season. So, full year of Antonio Pierce. Let's see what they can do. You got the Colts at 21. Full year of Anthony Richardson. They did sign Joe Flacco as an insurance policy. But yeah, I think this team is heading in the right direction. They're at 21. The Jets are at 20. They went up 4 spots. I mean, yeah, listen, I talked about them in the last segment. They addressed the offensive line. You signed Mike Williams. Listen, if the team's healthy, they're going to be competing for a playoff spot. Bears at 19. Right now they don't have a quarterback, but I love what the Bears did in the offseason. Signing DeAndre Swift, trading for Keenan Allen. Team's going to be good. I think this team is going to be good. Now, the division is going to be tough because you got the Packers and the Lions. But you know what? If Caleb Williams ends up being the guy, I mean, listen, he's got a lot of weapons. DJ Moore, like I said, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet. I mean, there's no reason why the Bears, shouldn't be a decent team going into next year. Buccaneers at 18, Rams at 17. The Bucs, they brought back most of their free agents. And let's see now what they could do with Baker Mayfield and all those guys in year 2. It's going to be tougher now because you got the Falcons with Kirk Cousins, but I'm hoping for a good year for Baker next season. So then the Rams are at 17. I mean, the loss of Aaron Donald really hurts them. That is a big hole they're going to have to fill. And I think they'll figure it out just because, again, you got Sean McVay, one of the best head coaches in the NFL. But that's a big loss. But you know what? The offense with the healthy Matthew Stafford and all those guys, you don't have to worry about the offensive side of the ball if everybody's healthy. It's the defense was the weakness of the team last season, so they're gonna have to figure that out. Chargers actually are at 16 right now. The moves that were made, so they lost everybody. I mean, they let go of Mike Williams. They traded Keenan Allen. Austin Eckler walked in free agency. I forgot to mention, he signed with the Commanders. So, Gus Edwards, Will Dissly, and Hayden Hurst. You got them. You got Quentin Johnston and Joshua Palmer. Those are Justin Herbert's weapons at the moment, which you figure they're going to draft a receiver. But they're at 16. I mean, I think they're still middle of the pack. I think right now I'd probably put the Rams ahead of them. But I think the Chargers are gonna figure it out with Harbaugh now. The Jaguars, middle of the pack, they're at 15. They had that late season collapse. They signed Eric Armstead, which was a good move. They signed Gabe Davis, Mitch Morse, Ezra Cleveland, and also they brought in Darnell Savage as well. The offensive line was not very good last season, so that was big. Getting Mitch Morse from the Bills, who the Bills released. So. Then you got the Falcons jumping up 13 spots here. And again, that has a lot to do with Kirk Cousins. They traded for Rondale Moore. They signed Darnell Mooney. So Kirk Cousins has a lot of weapons to throw to go along with Drake London and obviously Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts. So they're at 14. The Steelers at 13, whole different quarterback room with Russell Wilson, with Justin Fields. We'll see what happens. They also signed Patrick Queen, which was a solid signing. So, I mean, the Steelers, they're playing in a tough division, but, you better believe that they'll be competing for a playoff spot, next season, because that's just what happens under Mike Tomlin. Then you got the Browns at 12. They traded for Jerry Jeudy. You're hoping for a bounce back from Deshaun Watson. You hope that he's healthy. You hope Nick Chubb is healthy. Because if they are, and Deshaun Watson can, be the quarterback he was with the Texans, which, again, I don't see that happening, Browns are going to be a good team. Got a good defense. So, we'll see what they do in 2024. Then you got the Dolphins at 11. Again, they made a lot of moves, letting go of guys. But, I know they signed Jordan Poyer. They signed Shaq Barrett as well. Listen, the offense is going to put up points. You're hoping Tua can make a jump next season, which I don't know if he can. But, again, they're going to be another team that's going to be in the thick of it next year. Then in the top 10, so you got the Cowboys, who went down 4 spots. They really haven't done much. I mean, they signed Eric Kendricks and their long snapper. That's really it. So it's really going to all come down to the draft for them. So they're at 10. The Bengals at 9. You're just hoping for a healthy Joe Burrow. We got to keep an eye on the T. Higgins stuff because, if they end up trading him, that's going to be a big loss. And like I said, maybe you try to bring back Tyler Boyd unless he gets signed somewhere. Then the top 8, Green Bay Packers. Love what they did. They get Xavier McKinney. They signed Josh Jacobs. Now I thought, a lot of people thought for the moment, hey, they're going to keep Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones. Well, that ended up not being the case. They released Aaron Jones. But with Josh Jacobs, they did re-sign A.J. Dillon. But yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs should have a solid year for them. Jordan Love, I think, is going to take another step forward with with the the youngest team in the NFL around him. You got the receiving core with Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed and Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs and the two young tight ends. I mean, Packers are going to be good. Packers are going to be good next season. Number 7, another team, loved what they did in the offseason, the Houston Texans. Again, adding pieces to the defense. They signed Danielle Hunter. They brought back Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz. They traded for Joe Mixon. So the running game, will be better. I mean, I think it's probably going to be the same production like with Singletary because Singletary wasn't bad for them. But listen, C.J. Stroud in year 2, I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. Then the top 6, so you got the Eagles. They made a lot of moves on defense. They signed Saquon Barkley. New coordinators, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. I expect this team to bounce back. So, yeah, so they're at 6. I think I'd put the Bills a little bit lower. They did bring in Curtis Samuel to replace Gabe Davis. So, he's a decent wide receiver. I think he could be good for them. You still got Josh Allen. You still got Stephon Diggs, who we will talk about in the next segment. But yeah, so they're at 5, but I'd probably put them a little bit lower. Then in the top 4, so you got the Lions. They signed DJ Reader. They did lose a couple of guys. They lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They lost Jonah Jackson. But they did bring in DJ Reader. I mean, the Lions really didn't have to do that much. I mean, I know the defense was a little bit of an issue last season, so you got to improve that. And I think they'll probably try to add another weapon on the offensive side of the ball. But you got a great duo at running back. Jared Goff is played really well for them. Solid offensive line. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta had a solid rookie season. So, the Lions are going to be a good team once again. And they also extended their head coach too. They're going to be a good team once again in 2024. And then the top 3, you got the Ravens. Adding Derrick Henry was huge. They paid Justin Metabuke. I mean, if they're healthy next year, they're going to be a good team. Disappointing end to their season, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in the championship game. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be one of the top teams if they're healthy next season. Then at number 2, you got the 49ers, of course. Did lose some guys this offseason. Armstead they released. They did sign Leonard Floyd. They're also they also did sign Josh Dobbs recently to be their backup quarterback. But, I mean, there wasn't really a lot of moves that they had to make this offseason. I mean, I'd still look at them as the best team in the NFC. So, yeah. And then at 1, of course, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. They signed Marquise Brown. They paid Chris Jones. I mean, listen, this team is going to be is the team to beat once again going into next year. So, but yeah, that's it for the power rankings. So let me know what you guys think. I know I kind of ran a little bit long there with them, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about them. And with that being said now, actually, before we go into our next break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about a few wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy's new deal, Stephon Diggs' cryptic post on social media, and Odell Beckham Jr. Most likely leaving the Ravens with the little post that he made recently basically saying goodbye to Baltimore. So that is what we'll talk about when we come back from our second break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.